Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God, back with you with the next video in my series reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Without further ado, returning to The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, as read by Lord Naren White. Within 2 minutes, or even less, he had forgotten all his troubles. Not because his troubles were one whit less heavy and bitter to him than a man's are to a man, but because a new and powerful interest bore them down and drove them out of his mind for the time. Just as men's misfortunes are forgotten in the excitement of new enterprises, the new interest was a valued novelty in whistling, which he had just acquired from a black, and he was suffering to practice it undisturbed. It consisted in a peculiar bird-like turn, a sort of liquid warble produced by touching the tongue to the roof of the mouth at short intervals in the midst of the music. The reader probably remembers how to do it, if he has ever been a boy. Diligence and attention soon gave him the knack of it, and he strode down the street with his mouth full of harmony and his soul full of gratitude. He felt much as an astronomer feels who has discovered a new planet, no doubt, as far as strong, deep, unalloyed pleasure is concerned. The advantage was with the boy, not the astronomer. The summer evenings were long. It was not yet dark. Presently Tom checked his whistle. A stranger was before him, a boy a shade larger than himself. A newcomer of any age or either sex was an impressive curiosity in the poor little shabby village of St. Petersburg. This boy was well dressed, too, well dressed on a weekday. This was simply astounding. His cap was a dainty thing. His close blue button cloth round about was new and natty, and so were his pantaloons. He had shoes on, and it was only Friday. He even wore a necktie, a bright bit of ribbon. He had a citified air about him that ate into Tom's vitals. The more Tom stared at the splendid marvel, the higher he turned up his nose at his finery, and the shabbier and shabbier his own outfit seemed to him to grow. Neither boy spoke. If one moved, the other moved, but only sidewise, in a circle. They kept face to face, all to eye all the time. Finally, Tom said, "I can lick you." "I'd like to see you try it." "Well, I can do it." "No, you can't, either." "Yes, I can." "No, you can't." "I can." "You can't." Can't. An uncomfortable pause. Then Tom said, "What's your name?" "'This ain't any of your business, maybe." "Well, I 'low I'll make it my business." "Well, why don't you?" "If you say much, I will. Much, much, much! There now!" "Oh, you think you're mighty smart, don't you? I could lick you with one hand tied behind me if I wanted to." "Well, why don't you do it? You say you can do it." "Well, I will, if you fool with me." "Oh, yeah. I've seen whole families in the same fix. Smarty. You think you're some now, don't you? Oh, what a hat. You can lump the hat if you don't like it. I dare you to knock it off. And anybody that'll take a dare will suck eggs. You're a liar. You're another. You're a fighting liar and doesn't take it up. Aw, take a walk. Say, if you give me much more of your sass, I'll take and bounce a rock off on your head." "Oh, of course you will." "Well, I will." "Well, why don't you do it then? What do you keep saying you will for? Why don't you do it? It's because you're afraid." "I ain't afraid." "You are." "I ain't." "You are." Another pause, and more eyeing and sidling around each other. Presently they were shoulder to shoulder. Tom said, "Get away from here. Go away yourself." "I won't." "I won't either." So they stood, each with a foot placed at an angle as a brace, and both shoving with might and main, and glowering at each other with hate. But neither could get an advantage. After struggling till both were hot and flushed, each relaxed his strain and with watchful caution, and Tom said, "You're a coward and a pup. I'll tell my big brother on you, and he can thrash you with his little finger, and I'll make him do it too." What do I care for your big brother? I got a brother that's bigger than he is, and what's more, he can throw him over the fence, too. Both brothers were imaginary. That's a lie. Your saying so don't make it so. Tom drew a line in the dust with his big toe and said, I dare you to step over that, and I'll lick you till you can't stand up. Anybody that'll take a dare will steal sheep. The new boy stepped over promptly and said, Now you said you'd do it. Now let's see you do it. Don't you crowd me now. You better look out. Well, you said you'd do it. Why don't you do it? By jingo. For 2 cents, I will do it. The new boy took two broad coppers out of his pocket and held them out with derision. Tom struck them to the ground. In an instant, both boys were rolling and tumbling in the dirt, gripping together like cats, and for the space of a minute they tugged and tore at each other's hair and clothes, punched and scratched each other's nose, and covered themselves with dust and glory. Presently, the confusion took form, and through the fog of battle Tom appeared, seated astride the new boy, and pounding him with his fist. All enough, said he. The boy only struggled to free himself. He was crying, mainly from rage. All enough! And the pounding went on. At last the stranger got out a smothered, Enough! And Tom led him up and said, Now that'll learn you. Better look out who you're fooling with next time. The new boy went off brushing the dust from his clothes, sobbing, snuffling, and occasionally looking back and shaking his head and threatening what he would do to Tom the next time he caught him out. To which Tom responded with jeers and started off in high feather. And as soon as his back was turned, the new boy snatched up a stone, threw it, and hit him between the shoulders, and then turned tail and ran like an antelope. Tom chased the traitor home, and thus found out where he lived. He then held a position at the gate for some time, daring the enemy to come outside, but the enemy only made faces at him through the window and declined. At last the enemy's mother appeared and called Tom a bad, vicious, vulgar child and ordered him away. So he went away, but he said he load to lay for that boy. He got home pretty late that night, and when he climbed cautiously in the window, he uncovered an ambuscade in the person of his aunt. When she saw the state his clothes were in, her resolution to turn his Saturday holiday into captivity and hard labor became adamantine in its firmness. Chapter 2. Saturday morning was come, and all the summer world was bright and fresh and brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, and if the heart was young, the music issued at the lips. There was cheer in every face and a spring in every step. The locust trees were in bloom, and the fragrance of the blossoms filled the air. Cardiff Hill, beyond the village and above it, was green with vegetation, and it lay just far enough to seem a delectable land, dreamy, reposeful, and inviting. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and all gladness left him, and a deep melancholy settled down on his spirit. 30 yards of board fence 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, and existence being a burden. Sighing, he dipped his brush and passed it along the topmost plank. Repeated the operation, did it again, compared the insignificant whitewashed streak with the far-reaching continent of unwhitewashed fence, and sat down on a tree box discouraged. Jim came skipping out at the gate with a tin pail and singing Buffalo Gals. Bringing water from the town pump had always been hateful work in Tom's eyes before, but now it did not strike him so. He remembered that there was company at the pump. White, Latino, and black boys and girls were always there waiting their turns, resting, trading playthings, quarreling, fighting, skylarking, and he remembered that although the pump was only 150 yards off, Jim never got back with a bucket of water under an hour, and even then somebody generally had to go after him. Tom said, "Say, Jim, I'll fetch the water if you'll whitewash some." Jim shook his head and said, "Can't. Morris, Tom. Old Missus, She told me I got to go and get this water and not stop fooling around with anybody. She says she spec Morris Tom going to ax me to whitewash, and so she told me to go long and tend to my own business. She'd tend to do the whitewash. Oh, never you mind what she said, Jim. That's the way she always talks. Give me the bucket. I won't be gone only a minute. She won't ever know. Oh, I doesn't, Mars Tom. Oh, missus, she'd take an tar in the head off me. Deed, she would. She never licks anybody. Whacks 'em over the head with her thimble. And who cares for that? I'd like to know. She talks awful, but talk don't hurt anyways. It don't if she don't cry. Jim, I'll give you a marvel. I'll give you a white alley. Jim began to waver. White alley, Jim, and it's a bully tar. My dad's a mighty gay marvel, I tell you. But Mars Tom, I's powerful afraid of old missus. And besides, if you will, I'll show you my sore toe. Jim was only human, and the attraction was too much for him. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.